folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to Look Back. This is a series in which I take a look at reviews that I did a year, 5 years, and 10 years ago, and tell you what I think about them today. So, there's a lot of them, so let's get started with 1 year ago. First, we have a pretty horrible game I took a look at called Muno. Muno is it's like Cow Uno. That's why it's called Muno. And it's like, hey, what if we took Uno and made it more random? Hey, I have an idea. Let's not do that. Baker's Speed. This is a game now that Sherlock Holmes IP is available for everyone. Hey, let's take a game where you roll Sherlock Holmes dice as quickly as you can and grab cards. Yeah, not really a good idea. I wasn't very impressed with it. Then we have Chicken Wings. This is more of a silly game where you're throwing chickens at a wall. I get it. It's fun, especially for kids, right? This whole throwing a chicken, and having it stick to a wall. Entertaining, but, it has a very specific audience. Then we have Biotics. Now, Biotics is interesting because it's a little take-that game, and I'm not usually a big fan of take-that games, but this one works well as you're placing little organisms in your little bio dish, and by placing them there, you cause an effect to happen to everybody else, and so you're trying to end with the most points, or even if you play with some of the optional rules, shoot the moon and stuff. I love doing that. Just this whole kind of like, I'm going to put this here, and that makes yours go out over there, and you place it back. I thought it was a brilliant little game. Professor Marbles, this isn't so much a game as it is a solo puzzle, as you're taking test tubes and pouring them back and forth into each other until you get the grouping that's out there. But I thought it was an interesting, unique idea. Hide and Seek. This is another game where you're all trying to find stuff by spinning these spinners and looking at the pictures therein. It's kind of a Where's Waldo with a spinner idea attached to it, but works well, especially with kids. Crosstalk. Crosstalk is a more complex party game, which is why it doesn't score higher on my list. I like the idea of the game more than the game itself, as you're trying to get people to guess words and there's two teams, and you're using weird, unique clues. Some clues might not even be real, and you're using a little symbology to show this stuff to your team. I found it interesting, and it's fun, but it does require, it's a little more heady than many party games. Then we have Geekado Bot Battle. Now this one dropped a little bit, and that's because as I was sitting here going over this, I was like, now this is on my shelf. It's right over here. But I haven't played this for a year, and I haven't even pulled it out. And I thought, like this is like King of Tokyo, want to go up against that. And it is, it's fun. It's these bot battles, and you're rolling dice and stuff. It just hasn't shown up, so I had to ding it a little bit. Then we have Flatline. This is a great cooperative game, and you're all rolling dice and speedily deciding together where to put dice out to cure patients as they come in. I think the game itself is fairly difficult, but I love the theme of saving patients as they come in, and the cooperative dice speed games, that's something I tend to enjoy anyway. Then we have DECKSCAPE. Test Time. DECKSCAPE is a game that is one of the puzzle room games. It's one that it's kind of a very straightforward one. You have a puzzle, and when you come up with a solution, you flip the card, and you're right or wrong. That's fairly simplistic, but I like it. I found that the theme was pretty strong, and I really liked a lot of the puzzles in it. Lorenzo Il Magnifico. This game continually does well for me. This is a Euro game that's basically about getting points in various ways by buying cards. Now, part of the reason this rating has gone up is I think the expansion is marvelous, but I just like the idea of this game as you buy these cards and put them in a grid in front of you, or in this area in front of you, and you're kind of building up this engine, and as time goes by, because I did this, I can do this, and I can run these two little engines in front of me. There's a lot I love about this game. And then finally, from a year ago, we have the Exit games, and these have gone up for me. I think that they are the best of the Exit room, the escape room style games. The Exit ones they're destructible, but they offer me such fun puzzles, and each time I play one, I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to see what I'm going to do next, and cut this, and manipulate this, and do this, and I love them. All right, so 5 years ago, we have Croak, which was a frog game from Yellow, in which you're jumping frogs, and it felt very random and very deterministic. We didn't find a lot of enjoyment in the game at all. We also took a look at Pixel Lincoln. Now, Pixel Lincoln I was kinder to, I think, 5 years ago than I would be now. I know the idea was funny. Ha ha ha, Pixel Lincoln fighting all these enemies. It's a deck building game, but honestly, there's just too much randomness in the game for me to really enjoy it, and it's more about the humor. Surprisingly, unlike some other games like the the Boss Monster, and other Pixel games, Pixel Lincoln hasn't really lasted. I haven't heard anyone talk about it in a while. Lands Unknown, which is a pretty game, but it's just a little too difficult to teach, and while it looks cool as you put out all these cards, there's not as much of a game there. Talent is a abstract strategy game, and you're just trying to get the pieces into the right spots and win the game that way. It's good, just realize there's a gazillion out there, and I think this one kind of loses out because its name and the pieces look cool, but it doesn't really stand out in the crowd, I don't think. Chains to Champions, this Lego-ish game where you're putting, you have these little Lego figures and you're adding weapons and stuff to them. Well, it sounds great. Hey, let's take Lego and make it a game. Doesn't actually have the Lego license, though. It's its own thing. And they never went farther and added more stuff to it. So I dropped it a bit because I enjoyed the idea of it and I wanted to see more, and that more never came. 8 Minute Empire, the game that launched Red Raven Games. 8 Minute Empire is a pretty entertaining little game well, it's not 8 minutes, okay? It's about 15 minutes or so, but still, a little game where you're just, moving around and controlling it. I like it. I mean, it doesn't draw me to it, and I hardly ever play it because if I'm going to play an Empire game, I usually want to play one that's a little bit more robust than this one. But I think this is one of the linchpins for the whole Tiny Epic and a lot of these other smaller games. Reflection, kind of a little puzzle style game, a placing abstract game, but it has a mirror involved in it. And of course, anything with a mirror is automatically a little bit better. And then we have, let's see, Smash Up Awesome Level 9000. I don't know that this was the first expansion, it might have been, but this added Ghosts, which was a more unusual faction where you're trying to get smaller hands, and Bear Cavalry, which is just cool. Then we have War of the Ring 2nd Edition. Now, this one's dropped a bit for me. Now, don't get me wrong. I think War of the Ring is a great game. But it's one that I don't feel myself wanting to play as much anymore. Because it is big, it is grandiose, it is the Lord of the Rings in a box for sure. Don't get me wrong on that. But it just doesn't have that... I don't want to sit down for 3 hours and play it all the time. There's awesome things about it. It's great. But it's just one that's harder for me to get to the table. That's the only reason. I think, though, that it is a fantastic game. Ave Caesar also dropped a little bit here. And that's not because I think the game is bad. It's because Downforce came out, and I'm playing Downforce almost always instead of Ave Caesar. They're very similar games where you're moving cars around, blocking cars. In Ave Caesar, though, it's Your Chariot, though. It's a great game. I still like it a lot. I still gladly play it. Still in my collection. But Downforce is very similar. And then Conquest of the Planet Earth Apocalypse, this expansion. This is such an underrated game. I love this game. It's from Flying Frog Games. I'm not a big fan of most of their games, but Conquest of the Planet Earth I like a lot. Apocalypse added more stuff, added battleships and huge ships. And if you play this game as a cooperative game, working against Earth, wow, you get so frustrated by this expansion, but it is a lot of fun. Well, that's it for 5 years ago. 10 years ago, just one game I took a look at, and that's the Battle for Hill 218. This is a small game from Your Move Games, and it doesn't look like much. It's a war game-ish, but it's just some cards, and you're tactically playing them out. And if you think the game has no strategy, which I really did, and then I played the online version of it, and I could not beat it. I just could not do it. Now, they've remade this game, I think, with another theme in recent years, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this one come back. But it just isn't my style. I like it, but it's almost a little too simple. It's almost too abstracted out. There's almost like the war in it, just basically playing cards. But it is a fascinating thing to take a look at. So those are the games I reviewed 1, 5, and 10 years ago. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and this has been Look Back on the Dice Tower.